Welcome to the Practice Life. And today is a special edition. Oh, I love this. I love this conversation so much. I want you to meet Terri Cole, brilliant psychotherapist, author of Too Much, a best-selling book right now about breaking the cycle of high-functioning codependency. So if you are a woman who can handle it all, who does it all, who achieved and juggled and did all the things, and yet you secretly know that you've been a bit of a pleaser and you have been saying yes, too many yeses and not enough no's. You're going to love this conversation. Terri is brilliant. Here we go. It's time to break the cycle. I'm going to start right out. I'm going to start right out and tell you this needs to be in your library. This is Terri Cole's book, Too Much, A Guide to Breaking the Cycle of High-Functioning Codependency. Bar none. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to wait till the end to say it. I'm going to say this to you right now, that you must have your own copy. It is filled with exercises. It's filled with questions. It's filled with work that you can do. It's amazing. But mostly what it's filled with is sometimes startling and often soul-stirring insight. So if you are showing up here and you know how to work your computer and you know how to work Zoom and all that, you are a fairly high-functioning woman in the world. And if you've been ever wondering why like, I'm a little stuck here and I'm not so happy as I could be here, and there's a little diddly do over here, and I don't know, there might be something over here. You might find those very answers in this book and absolutely in our conversation tonight. So I think Mark Groves introduced us. Terri Cole is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant psychotherapist and best-selling author. And I'm sure you heard of her first book that I read was Boundary Boss. And I was like, yeah, 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 this is good. This is giving me some direction. This is like going to the healing waters of the grotto. I mean, it's really, really wonderful. I'm going to bring you out, Terri. I'm going to bring you out, my friend. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy that you joined us. Say hi to the people, Terri.
Oh, hi, people. How you doing? I'm so psyched to be here.
Oh, I know. This is going to be such a great conversation. And so needed and necessary. And lastly, I want to say for all of you who are new to me too, this is the free front porch of my network. I closed my Facebook community and invited everybody to come to the free front porch of my own platform. Why? Because I have one. And I don't want to be over on some other scroll a doodle somewhere
Mhm.
else. I have my own thing. And so I like to make sure that there's content for everybody. So there's paid memberships and then there's the free front porch. And Terri is here tonight with us on the free front porch so we could make it a public event and put this information in the most hands we could. It's going to be a special on my new podcast, The Practice Life. And so, Terri, you're going to help. I mean, there's so much. I have so many notes that I'm going to try not to look at it, or I'm going to be like, what about this? What about that? What about this? So let me start by saying, I am going to confess to you that for years and years, and I was at the Oprah show. So these topics were not unfamiliar to me.
Right.
But the idea of people pleasing, I was like, that's not really me. I'm not trying to please everybody. Then it was like, codependent. Like, I don't really think that feels like more of a, I'm pretty accomplished, and I can be a bit of a buster. I'm climbing the Himalayas here, so I'm not sure that really applies to me. But oh no. Oh no, oh no. When I dive deep into this new heartier, more layered, deep definition, would you walk us through what a high functioning what high functioning codependency is.
Sure. I'll start with, I'll say what it is, but I'll also start with why I had to create it, right? Because it didn't exist basically. Is that in my therapy practice for 27 years, I've had women like you, like me, like many of you, super capable, super high functioning, crushing it in life, doing the thing, masters of the universe in our own ways, right? Multiple, we are juggling all the things and kind of not really dropping that much, really doing great. So in my therapy practice, if I were to see a codependent relational pattern and point it out, my clients were like, no, incorrect. You are wrong, lady. You must be thinking about somebody else because I'm not dependent on squat. Everyone's dependent on me. I'm making all the dough. I'm making all the moves. I'm doing all the emotional labor. I'm making sure the kid goes to camp or that the end of the year gifts get bought or whatever the hell I'm doing. All of it. So then I realized, oh my God, my clients do not know what codependency is at all. So then I went back and I was like, okay, why is this? Why don't we know? And my definition, which I'll now share, is you or me for that matter, because obviously you teach what you most need to learn, um, being overly invested in the feeling states, the outcomes, the circumstances, the finances, the careers, the relationships of the people in your life to the detriment of your own internal peace. So we're going to look at that distinction because as empaths, sisters, daughters, friends, mothers, citizens of the world, obviously we're invested in the people we love, getting what they want in life, being happy. This is what we want. When you're an HFC, as we call it, it's more than that. You go from wanting it for them to feeling responsible for it happening for them. So that's different, right? It's not the same thing. So my problem was this. I have these clients who my job is to help them, and I cannot help them if they cannot see themselves in the problem. That for sure, I know they are definitely in, but they don't see it. So I did a bunch of research on my own and I was like, what is it? Why are we so like, with codependency? Exactly what you said, Cher, where you're like, not me, right? It's not me. And I think that my clients were being unduly influenced by the seminal text by Melody Beattie, Codependent No More, which basically the myths and the assumption is that you must be enabling an alcoholic to be a codependent. Like,
Right.
think about it. What comes to mind? You're like, oh, the long suffering wife at home while the husband spends the money on drinking and gambling and whatever that is, it's all bad and it's nothing. So I was like, oh, we need a codependent book for modern life, for modern women. And that's what this book is. And that's what this concept is for how we live now and how to change how we live now to be less constricted, less bitter, less angry, less low grade aggro, and more joyful, you know?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm just gonna dive into some pieces that really, I know when it speaks to me that there's gonna be somebody that's gonna go, oh my gosh. Um, and I have so many pages in this book that I was like, oh, that's you, that's you, that's you. Now I will say I have been deep in doing the work on myself for about 4 years, deep. And so I would say that I'm not starting at the starting line. And so I wasn't like, what? These are lies, Terry. You know what I mean? So it fell on me like yep, 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 yep. But there is I understand myself so much better having read this book. You talk about on page 43, you talk about auto accommodating. And I was like,
Mm,
what's that? Well,
mm,
I'm going to tell you. Auto accommodating is a state of hyper awareness where you are acutely dialed into what is happening around you, unconsciously scanning for ways to ward off conflict or correct problems, even if said conflict or problems have nothing to do with you.
mm.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was, and I know, man, I've got that muscle. I've got it right there. And you were giving the example of somebody was getting a henna treatment and she could see the line was building up at the beauty parlor.
Yep.
So she had to like, I could move somewhere else and so you could get more people into the shampoo bowl. And it's like, I'm like, me, I'd have been producing the whole thing. I'd have been like,
Absolutely.
listen, these people are going to be fit to be tied with you. It's going to cost you in tips. Put
Yep.
me over on an, oh, I would have been all in that. Auto accommodating. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that, Terry?
Well, listen, it's what we were trained to do. So let's just, there's nothing wrong with you. If you're doing this, nothing wrong with you, Sharon, nothing wrong with me, for sure, or my clients, or anybody here. This is what we were trained to do. So home training, what was the expectation of you as a little girl? Mine was definitely be a good girl. Be nice. If you don't have anything nice to say,
Yeah.
don't say anything at all. So
Yeah.
nobody's like, oh, I want to know about your authentic self. Tell me everything. No, it's like,
Tell me your truth.
no, be helpful,
Yeah.
right? The most important thing growing up was that people thought you were nice,
Yeah.
right? Being nice. I mean, think about the way we think about women still. It's like, oh my God, you would love Betty. She would give anybody the shirt off her back. You're like, Betty, keep your effing shirt on. Like, why are we just giving our clothes to just anybody? I'm not saying don't be loving, don't be kind. I am saying this idea that the more self sacrificing, the more feminine, the more self sacrificing, the more self abandoning, the better woman you are. This is a bill of goods that we've been sold.
Yeah.
And, we got praise for it in childhood. So we grew up, and this is listen, it's a non scientific theory, but I really do believe doing this for almost 30 years in the trenches with therapy clients, I think it's true. I think part of what happened is think about when women could be anything other than a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher. That only started happening maybe in the late 60s going into the 70s,
Yeah.
right? So what happened is as soon as we could go to school and like become engineers or psychotherapists or doctors or something else, we were like, listen, here's our silent agreement. We'll still do everything. Just don't make us do nothing else but this domestic goddess stuff. Like, just don't worry. We're not going to inconvenience you. We'll do all the stuff at home. We'll make sure all the kids are good. We'll still make sure that all the food is there. We'll make sure that all the toilet paper is available. We have it. And again, I can't prove that, but I get that feeling that we were just so pumped to be able to do something in life with our big, beautiful brains that we were like, fuck it, we're so capable. We're just going to do it all. Now, the problem with doing it all is that you can't do it all. And even if you can, because so many of you on this call, and Cher, I know you and I know me, like we're super capable. Like we actually are more capable than most. And so there's a lot that you can do, but you also can't do it forever. What ends up happening is that when we overfunction. So before I get into what kind of happens, why don't we talk a little bit about behaviors so people can see, like, do you feel like this is you? I want you to be able to
Yes.
see yourself in this. So first and foremost, feeling responsible for fixing other people's problems. There's not a problem that I can't fix, right? I know that's like a rap song from like the 80s, but that's what I want to say because that's the way that we are. And for me, I was completely indiscriminate. I didn't even have to effing know you. I could be overhearing a conversation on a plane and I'd be like, oh my God, I know a great oncologist. Like, mind your own effing business. But I just couldn't. So again, the hyper helping, wanting to fix other people's problems, over giving, right? Giving till it hurts. A lot of times, giving when someone has not asked, doing things that have not been asked, but we feel like they should be done. Always ready to jump into damage control mode. Like, oh God, we're so good in a crisis. Lord, this is like, oh, that's a skill set. Like, if there is a crisis, we're running towards the crisis to help, most of us, Um, getting frustrated and angry when other people don't take our auto advice, right? Because we just can't stop. I don't even have to know you to know what you should be doing with your life. And we do probably have really good advice. We're very smart people. So we've got we have lived experience and all the things. But we can also start to get frustrated when people don't take our advice that we so lovingly gave them and stayed on the phone with them for 2 hours on a Wednesday night when we were exhausted or whatever it was. And then they actually the next week want to talk about the same thing. We're like, you are inefficient, and I do not appreciate that. You may feel exhausted, kind of resentment, a little bit bitter about the amount because there's a lot of bandwidth out. If you are a high functioning codependent, there's a lot of bandwidth out. So we are auto advice giving. We are overly self sacrificing because we, as an HFC, I don't know, you guys, my nose is just running. This is just a part of menopause. It's such a fucking joy. Anyway, just for no reason. I don't have a cold and I don't have allergies. Just my nose runs all. You wonder why old ladies always have tissues like this? This is why. Anyway, moving on. Being overly self sacrificing. Um, as an HFC, we're kind of always willing to take one for the team. You know what I mean? You're kind of like, it's a, you know what, you take it. I'm good. I'll get it next time. Like my husband and I both, like we have this massage person that we go to, really medical massage because we're all aging. And it's like if there's only one, I'm always like, you could take it. You know what I mean? And that is very common, but he's an HFC, so he doesn't. But anyway, besides the auto advice giving, the auto accommodating that we talked about, we have anticipatory planning. So this is where we're just thinking of all the things. We have figured out all the things. You may have somebody difficult in your life. I share a story in a book that one of my friends was going out with this guy who was just a fucking idiot and just a troublemaker, just a complainer, just people, pardon me, had to blow my nose. Just, people who you're always worried because they're always going to be butthurt about something like we're renting a place and he'll be like, what do we get the small room? Do you know what I mean? Like just so endlessly thinking about how to not have this idiot torture my girlfriend. That's anticipatory planning, where you see trouble coming, but you find a way to make it not come. And you might have difficult people in your life. So oh, Uncle Bob is coming and he doesn't like Uncle Jimmy, so I'll make sure they don't sit together and I'll get the booze that they both like and I'll make sure that my cousin is talking to Bob. And we're like puppet masters instead of like having a real conversation with two grown adults. Like if you two idiots can't get along, then don't come to my house for Christmas. Instead, we're like, I can handle it. I'll just fix all the stuff. So that's anticipatory planning. And then we have overfunctioning. And overfunctioning and underfunctioning is a really important dynamic to understand in relationships. I say this kidding, kind of tongue in cheek, but it's absolutely true that in my 20s, I could take a perfectly capable boyfriend and turn that guy into an underfunctioner in 2 weeks or less. 2 weeks or less, because I overfunctioned so much. So every time they were trying to do something, I was like, yeah, I got it. No, I did it. Yeah. I made the reservation. You know what I mean? So we don't want to do that. And yet we do. So there's a combination of things that can happen when we overfunction, which is we're teaching other people that will do it. So that can not only inspire underfunctioning, but also it can inspire feigned incompetence. There's a whole bunch of not good things for our relationships that can come out of overfunctioning and underfunctioning. And then you have self-abandonment, because inherent in all of this that we're talking about, so much of what we're really talking about is self-abandoning, right? Like I'm going to take one for the team and self-abandon. I'm going to please you, even if it's displeasing to me,
Right.
because as HFCs, we're super into the peace. We just
Yeah.
want peace. We want everyone to be happy. We don't want there to be any trouble, and we want things to be peaceful. So yeah, those are some of the behaviors. So we should go somewhere from there.
So, okay, I'm just curious. Let's look in the chat. Anybody see themselves in any of those descriptions? Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like it has my name on it. This should be The Story of Sherry Salata by Terry Cole. Um, I look, I take this in, Terry, and I look at my own life and I say, it all goes back to the training. What I say all the time is we were trained by people who weren't trained, and they didn't have access to all this. So bless them. And I say this with all the kinds of compassion.
Mhm.
My mother was the servant of the family, and underneath it, she was seething with resentment.
Sure.
And it was through clenched teeth sometimes.
Yes.
And and I could, as a kid, I could feel the vibe of it, and I
Hmm.
could feel her depression from it. I could
Yep.
feel her resentment. I could feel her like her frustration. And also, because she did everything so perfectly, you could never do it good enough. So then you would feign incompetence just to get it over with. So she would just do it.
Yeah.
Um, and my dad, I mean, it was like Ward Cleaver times, right? He would come home, and I think for a little bit, I remember as a little kid, he had a hat on. He'd come home from the office at
Hmm.
5:40, and he sat around the rest of the night. Well, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, my mom's never off. She's never
Hmm.
done. She's never off. And I just remember being like, that doesn't look good to me. But even though I rejected that setup and I rejected that, and I was like, I don't want that. And I see how miserable you really are, even though we never talk about it.
Yep.
And there's no honest truth about it. At the same time, I found myself in my overachieving ways
Oh yeah.
achieve, 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 to be
Yep.
worthy, to be loved. Don't cause a conflict. Don't confront anybody about anything.
Hmm.
Swallow it. Just get along to get along. I
Yeah.
mean, conflict avoidance, I think, is it's particularly rampant in
Hmm.
my-ish, our-ish generation.
Yep.
What can you say about that?
That everything you said, I completely identified with. And what's interesting is that we try to avoid the repetition because I too saw my mother being cleavery or whatever we want, June cleavery, in it to a degree. My father come home, he'd be like, always late. He works like a dog, but white collar, he'd be like, he was total madman. Those guys like Brooks Brothers suit wearing, Wall Street Journal
Yeah.
reading, golfing on the weekends, drinking martinis all the time, that kind of guy. And he'd be like, make me a sandwich. What? Get out of here. Anyway, she would. And so I definitely looked and was like, okay, so who has the power? Oh, he has the power because he makes the money. I'm definitely doing that. I'm definitely going to be the person who makes the money. And my mother was like, girl, get an education so that money, so that literally love could be a choice and not a need for you. So with the avoiding conflict, again, we were trained not to. This is what our parents did. My mother wasn't confronting my father about anything. We didn't learn. We learned all the meta message. We learned all the passive aggressive ways.
Silent treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, being withdrawn in anger, if she even dared. With my mother, what we really did was just avoid the shit out of it. For my life, we just avoided my father. Men were people to be managed. That's it. Not to tell the truth to. What? I cheated on every boyfriend until I was like actually grown up and had a bunch of therapy because I was like, whatever. Like, what do they know? You know how men are. It was like a whole kind of a male bashing, very female oriented family. But the truth was, none of that makes you happy. That's not balanced. And you don't have to be codependent in a marriage to be codependent. So what you're saying, Cher, is that, that then you became codependent in your career, right? We become
Oh yeah.
high functioning codependents with the,
I can do it. I can do it. Oh, I haven't been to bed in 3 days. That's okay. What's
yeah,
for? Oh
yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm fine. So we want to look at the costs to all of this, right? Because listen, the whys are important. And in the book, I walk you through, it's like your HFC blueprint, which is basically your relational blueprint. And exactly what we're talking about right now, you guys can all think in your own lives, and you can share in the chat. Did you see this? What was there an imbalance in effort or power? Were you from a family system where your mother did all the emotional labor? The way many people did, because it depends on your age. But
Yeah.
I have to say, most people go, yeah, that was kind of my experience. So, what is the cost to us in doing that? It's important to understand your relational dynamic, right? So, someone said, totally my family dynamic, mom as a martyr and dad as a ruler. right? And trust me, you guys, think about the martyrs that you've known in your life. They could be older women, grandmoms, whatever. Nobody at 25 was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to grow up and become a martyr. It's going to be so amazing. Like it happens, but nobody wants it to happen. So we have to be so mindful of what are the things that turn us into martyrs. And it's the seething anger that you were talking about, Cher. It's the bitterness. It's the over functioning and the self abandonment that is a one-way ticket to Bitterland. And literally, that's like the only stop on that train. It just
Oh
goes to
my
one
God.
place because you can only do it for so long, you
One
know?
more time. One way ticket to Bitterland. And it's the only stop on that train for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Not what we want. And even with modern women, because it looks different, because we can in a way do it all and we do a lot of things, we the lack of identification of this behavior being codependent, because let's go back to codependency for a moment. Any kind of codependency, garden variety, high functioning, the foundation of that behavioral pattern is the same, which is a covert or overt desire or attempt to control other people's outcomes. So you got to really let that sink in as to what that is, right? Part of this process, and I mentioned this quite a bit in the book, where I say, you're going to learn to, like, what is my side of the street
Yeah.
and what is someone else's side of the street,
Right.
right? You can learn in this book and you can learn in this life to let the chips fall where they may, especially when they're not your mother effing chips. But the thing is, when you're an HFC, you think all the chips are your mother effing chips, but they're not. Does that make sense? Is that analogy too out there? Like, do you get what I mean?
I do. I get what you mean. I thought everything, they're all my chips.
Yes,
Like
I
if I
was
have
about
the
to roll.
solution. No, you can imagine there's two different examples here that I want to point out. Number one, if you're like me, you didn't have kids, you weren't dealing with a family. Can you imagine? Now it's not true now so much, but can you imagine what a delight I would be to a boss when I will self abandon at every turn
Yep,
and make everything in my life about everything that matters to you
yep.
in order to achieve? So then I go in my life and I can feel loved and valued.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's that version and then the other version is where um, you are married, you have your kids.
Hmm.
Now you were raised to be codependent, likely, it's a sweeping generalization. You were probably raised that way. Now you have adult children.
Hmm.
And are you meddling? Are you obsessively worrying about every little diddly do? Are you like making sure they have pots and pans? Are you are you like in the midst of their like, and it is, I'm not saying you're meddling in their marriage, maybe you are. I'm not
Listen,
saying you're
you
meddling
are
with
though.
how they raise their kids, but you're too in like they're still giving them money, whatever it is, because
Yep.
now it's going to show itself somewhere else. I mean, I've been spared that. I would be all into that, doing that too.
Yes. I had a woman, I was on a radio show, and this lady called in and she was talking about the fact that she had three daughters and that after once they started having children, she designated herself as the free babysitter. So now she was 64 watching seven kids every day.
Yeah,
And she was like, and now I'm kind of tired. I was like, I want to know why you think you should do that though. Why? What is that your
they don't have any
value?
money. It's really expensive for child. Oh, please. Oh yeah. I mean, it's you're primed for it. I'm looking at, is it Tanya or Tania? I'm looking at, you said as a single woman you were discriminated against because you were always available to get on a flight, etc. You
Yep.
are right, but I'm going to tell you, I think that's why I stayed single. Yeah. They've got kids. I can go. I can go. I mean, I had a convoluted thing that it was a benefit I was offering, my self-abandonment.
But here's the thing, it was just not to you.
Correct.
It was a benefit for them because you had disordered boundaries, because you overfunction, and because you're so highly capable. You probably did the job, probably, if we were really being honest, of probably five people. For
Probably.
for real. For real. So let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the cost,
Yeah.
right? And listen, you guys, some of this is super obvious, and you're going to be like, duh, we got the cost. But there's a lot of subtle and nuanced costs that you don't see, that it's important that we do, because we want the motivation to change if you see yourself in what I'm talking about. One thing that I've, first of all, another one of the behaviors is hyper independence. So, does anyone feel like they're hyper independent? Difficult to ask people for help, difficult to accept help, even like if the taxi driver, I got a huge ass bag and he's trying to put it, I'm like, I got it. Just don't even forget it. Like, I'm literally going to the trunk and like lifting it up when I was in my 20s. Like, even that. I don't even want you bagging my groceries. I got it. I got it. One of the mantras of HFCs is, I got it. And it has to be me.
Mm.
They do feel like it must be us. So that's important. So back to the cost is burnout, obviously. So that's, I've seen a lot of that in my therapy practice. Just you just finally hit a wall. And it can happen in different ways. And it's so interesting how the most of the HFCs that would find themselves in my therapy office, it would all be because they want to be more productive than they're being, because they now have an autoimmune disorder, or they have TMJ, or they have insomnia, or they're going through perimenopause or menopause. And they're all like, how can I get back to the way that I was? They're not like, I can't wait to dive deep and find out about my childhood wounds. They're like, no, can we? One lady was like, can we do an intensive weekend? I was like, no, man, that is not the way the mind works. She literally was like, can we do a boot camp? Can you fix me in 48 hours? This was, I actually wrote about this in
So I
Boundary.
could do more.
Yeah, that's right. She was an editor at like a fancy glossy mag, and she was like, "I've got shit to do." I was like, "Lady, that I if I could do that, I'd be super rich." That's not the way it works. But anyway, back to the costs. Burnout, health problems, bitterness, as we said. Not the All right, so two that I think are probably the most devastating. One is what I called, because you got to name things that you see, living life light, which means that, like light, LITE, where we're so here, living in our head, planning all the things, making sure we got it, ruminating about what did or didn't go right or perfectly or whatever, making sure that everyone has what they need for tomorrow, doing the auto accommodating, doing the anticipatory planning, all of those things. That means you're in your brain. So everything we experience in life, we're like half there, which means that life is about half as juicy, half as impactful, half as beautiful, half as exquisite as it can be, as it should be, right? But we're here because we have such a need to control what's going on. So, and the last thing that I think, this probably was the most devastating, or can be, is that we go through our lives and we are not known. And that is a travesty, because we're so busy knowing other people, controlling, attempting to, moving things around the chessboard. I want you to think about right now how much you know about the people in your life. You have a stadium full of data about every one of those people. You know who doesn't eat gluten. You know who broke up with their girlfriend. You know who doesn't like small talk. You know who hates the winter. You know it. We remember it. We do not expect, usually, we don't expect that same treatment or care from others, because we're so, right? We're so controlling all of the things. And then if we look at what is the cost to other people, when we're auto advice giving, what are we doing? We are the boundary tramplers, right? In Boundary Boss, my sort of lens was about how am I going to get other people to respect my boundaries? In writing this book, I really realized that as an HFC in recovery, but listen, it's ongoing. And you guys, I say in recovery because there's no getting fixed from this shit, but you can get in recovery. I'm in recovery for alcohol. It's the same thing. Does that mean I don't want to drink? No, it does not. It just means I don't. So this is the same thing where you will still have the desire to tell everyone what to do or to give your best advice or to offer to get out of the sink so that else can use the sink in your hair salon, right? You may have that initial um, instinct, but what happens is when you start really doing this work, you just don't do that. You go, oh, this is my time to rest. We start adding all of this incredible self consideration, right? This is part of the fix, is that we become self considerate. I couldn't call it self care. I couldn't call it self love because it kept, even though that was the name of that section for a while, but I was like, but that's not it. That is not what it is. Self consideration, which is this umbrella, which is like this. Before you say yes to anything in your life, I'm going to invite you to ask yourself these two questions. Do I have the bandwidth to do this thing without becoming resentful? That's question number one. Question number two, do I even effing want to do it? And we never ask as HFCs because if someone else wants us to do it, we're like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. Or I guess I got to figure out how to make it work into my life. I really want you to stop. I really want, if the only thing you took away from our time together tonight was really, and I'm going to give you a bunch of other things you can do, but there, I really feel like those are two of the most important questions that you can ask yourself. Now, we have to be honest. If the answer is no, I cannot do this thing without becoming resentful, then this is where our boundaries come in. This is where we say, I really can't. And I give you all kinds of scripts in the book, so don't worry, you're like not on your own with that.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly important that your self consideration is like becomes your top priority. Yes, the questions are number one, do I have the bandwidth to do this thing that someone is asking me to do without becoming resentful? And number two, do I even want to do it? Because so much of the time, Connie, we don't even give ourselves the out. We don't even care what we want because for so long, if you've been on autopilot with people pleasing, right? That you don't even think. You're like, but it's got to get done. It's something that a box I need to check, you know? Whew.
I love self-consideration. That is, I'll write that down. Self-consideration. It's different than self-love. It's different than self-care. It is the entryway portal into a new way of being.
Yes.
Self, just to take a moment and consider self-consideration. Before one other topic I wanted to bring up because I just had a really clear example of it. I had a couple friends come and visit me, and I haven't seen them in a while, and really excited to see them. And we were going to do a little cooking and just hanging out. Like they don't really like to do a lot of stuff, so I'm like, okay. And the whole time, the whole time, and I could feel, and I'm not cleaning this, so I'm not pointing fingers, but it was like a mirror, scrolling the whole time.
Oh,
Watch a movie, everybody's scrolling.
yeah,
Having a conversation, everybody starts from the minute the coffee's poured in the morning.
yeah.
Glass of wine, scrolling, everybody's scrolling. It was that whole, it was like 3.5 days. It was a non-stop scroll.
No.
And I was like, and watching the scrolling made me go to get my phone like I was missing something. And so then I was reading this in your book about shadow addictions.
Mm, yeah.
They numb our emotions and create distractions that keep us in familiar dysfunctional patterns. These behaviors can include, not limited to, see if you see yourself, retail therapy, nightly alcohol or cannabis consumption, workaholism, overexercising, overeating, doom scrolling, Netflix binging. They anesthetize our pain, fears of rejection, vulnerability, and inadequacy. Let's talk about that for a minute. Numbing.
Yes. I think that it's really important to make the distinction between. So I came up with this, I called them shadow addictions because with my high functioning clients, their numbing behaviors they're never getting a DUI. Do you know what I mean? Like it never gets to the point that like real addiction, the shit show that becomes where everyone knows it and you have to stop, right? Or you die or whatever it is that happens.
Your marriage failed. Yeah, right. It's
There's like
like, yeah.
catastrophic things that happen. Not so with shadow addictions. But I make the distinction in the book between self numbing behaviors that you just listed, Cher, and self soothing behaviors because they're different. So I want to talk a little bit about the phone thing for a minute. And I really think that I do this in my house and people know it. And maybe I'm bossy and I don't give a shit because if you're at my house, you're here. There's a basket near my front door. And especially when my nieces are around, everyone puts their fucking phones in the basket. I am not here to look at the top of your head. I need you to listen with your eyeballs and your ears. And if you can't, I'll go take a bath. I'll go take a hike. There's a million things I could do with my one and only precious life that I'm never getting back, these moments that are now gone. No thanks. So my feeling is, and listen, people in the beginning, people are like, so this, that. Here's the thing. I don't care. My house, Crackpot Farm, where I live, it's beautiful. People love to come visit. There's rules of engagement for the quality of my experience. Sit in your car. Stay in New York City if you want to scroll. What are you afraid of? You don't want to talk? You don't want to be intimate? You don't what is it? I would rather talk than do anything. But that's also I'm a therapist, maybe that's just me. But I feel like we do have the power to just be like, no, I'm not doing that. I also, if I'm talking to someone and they're on their phone, I will literally say, hey, if that's important, I can wait.
Oh, jeepers.
Because there's no fucking way I'm going to continue to share the gems from my brain with you while you're on Instagram. Why? I don't need to. So we can do it less angry than I was just now. We can do it loving. We can do it with humor. You can do it tongue in cheek, but it's your life. So you decide how you want to spend your time. All right. So that was the phone
I
thing.
think that's a big one. I mean, that's why I'm bringing that up
Yeah.
because I think for women of a certain age who've had their phones, there is an anxiety, a current of anxiety, especially if you are a high functioning
Yep.
codependent and you're like going and going and going and going, and it's been hours since your morning meditation or whatever.
Yeah.
And that phone is like, scroll me, scroll, because I can scroll and watch a movie and have a conversation with you. Not you, Terry, obviously, but anybody else, anybody else on this Zoom. I could do it. I feel like I could do it and I could keep track of it. But
Yeah, but
again,
you're not doing
at
it though,
what
Sharon.
cost?
Yes. And here's the thing. And we're not doing it because that's also life light. That movie
Yes.
is a light impression in your brain. That
Yeah.
movie is not a deep impression, even if it's a deep movie, if you're watching something else, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like we don't want to live life light. We want to live life balls to the wall, full out. Let's be here now, you know?
All right.
So let's talk
Love
about what
it.
we can do.
Yep.
So you already raised your awareness, right? You're raising your awareness by being here, by talking, by being in this group, by caring about your mental health, by gathering with someone like Sherry, right? So we know that you already care about your life and the quality of your life. We need better boundaries, like we were just talking about with the phones. And you can also do it kind of funny. You can take it on yourself. You can say, I'm doing a tech detox. So I'm going to ask you guys, do me a favor tonight, just phones in the basket, just tonight, right? We can make it seem like it's only going to be a little bit. And let's see. Let's see how people respond to that, you know? We have to surrender to what is. And, you know, Cher, I feel like this is one of the hardest things to do when you're an HFC because we are the mountain movers.
Yeah.
So if we don't like what is, we feel like there's so much we could do to change it and we want to. And I tell a story in the book about I'm the youngest of four sisters. And one of my sister's history of bad like relationships, and she was actively alcoholic. This was decades ago. And she was literally in an abusive relationship, living in the woods with no running water or electricity in upstate New York. It was winter with this abusive guy. Like it was just an HFC's nightmare. I mean, I had my whole life going on, but I couldn't stop obsessing about like how am I getting her the fuck out of there? Like what am I doing? So I was crying to my therapist for like, the 15th week in a row. And I was like, Bev, what am I going to do? I've done everything because I did do everything. I moved her out twice. I put money, try to get a lawyer, all the books, all the things. And she said, Terri, let me ask you something. What makes you think you know what your sister needs to learn and how she needs to learn it in this life? And I was like, holy shit, I have no idea. But am I allowed to not save her? Like, I didn't even think there was an option. I was like, she's my sister. Am I going to give up on her? And she said, no. And I said, I think we can agree. She doesn't need to learn these lessons in a house without running water with a piece of shit who's abusing. Like, can we agree she doesn't have to do it this way? And she said, no, I can't. Because I don't know how your sister needs to learn her lessons in this lifetime. And I'm not God, and neither are you. But do you understand what's happening for you? And I was like, obviously, no. So help. What is happening for me in this? And she said, you have worked really hard to create a harmonious life. Your sister's dumpster fire of a life is seriously encroaching on your happiness and your peace. And you want it to be fixed so you could go back to your happy life. And I was like, wow, she is not lying. Like that shit was completely accurate. Like that's true. So for me, it was hard, a little bit of a pill to swallow where you have to go, wow, I thought I was all just Mother Teresa love. Like I thought this is just me being devoted, right? This is just me being a great sister. Then you realize it's something else. And she said, what you need is you have to have boundaries. You don't need to let her talk to you about this abusive guy. And you can be there for her when and if she wants to leave. So I had a difficult conversation with my sister, said exactly that. She understood. And within 9 months, we had talked maybe 2 times in 9 months. It was hard too. I felt super guilty. There was all the shit, but I held the boundary because I also was recently married. I just became a bonus mom to 3 teenage boys. Like, I had shit in my life that needed my attention. And 9 months later, my sister called and said, are you still my person? I was like, I'm literally diving in my car. I'm on my way to get you right now. She came, my husband and I were able to help her appropriately, right? But I want you to understand why the story matters. Instead of me inserting myself as the solution to my sister's problem, right? Instead of her being saved by her babyest sister, that doesn't feel good. That's humiliating. That feels like a shame spiral that's never going to end. She got to be the hero of her own life. She got sober. She was never in another abusive relationship. She went back to school. And we had this little lake house that it was like a shack, literally, but had running water and heat. And we winterized it. And we just let her stay there for 2 years while she got on her feet and went to school. So my point is, the cost to our relationships is so high when we are inserting ourselves. And what we're not doing is intimately knowing the people in our lives. So this piece is so important. And I'm so glad we didn't end without talking about it. Instead of auto advice giving, instead of feeling like you're just going to tell the person, I want you to ask expansive questions. So no matter the next time anybody comes to you for anything, they're talking about a heartache, they've got a problem at work, even if it's a little kid who's had a terrible day at school and they got into a fight or whatever they did, the first thing you're going to say is, okay, so tell me what you think you should do. And then just stop talking and let them tell you. And even if they say, I don't know, you go, okay, that's all right. Let's just spitball it. Let's just brainstorm it. If you did know, what would it be? What does your gut say? Because your gut is good. If they say, well, I want to know what you think, I'll always say, hey, I'll give you my 2 cents in the end, but here's the thing. What you think is infinitely more important than what I think about what you should do because it's your life and you don't know it. Like, I mean, if you don't know it, meaning I don't know what you should do. Even with my sister, I thought I did, but I learned that it's not enough to say she shouldn't be in an abusive relationship. She had to be ready to leave. So, us fixing other people's problems is centering ourselves. And that was really hard for me to like wrap my skull around. I was like, oh my God, I'm like centering myself in all of these situations. And it is such a relief.
Terry, is there also a little piece of our over involvement in everybody else's lives,
Hmm.
when we're not really even asked or unasked, that
Yep.
automatic, fix, manage, and control everything. Is there a part of us is we're trying to not pay attention to our own garden?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because isn't it so much easier for me to fix your problems than to feel my painful feelings, than to
Yeah.
be disappointed, than to look at my own shadow, than to
Yeah.
understand the work I need to do, than to look at my shadow addictions,
Yeah.
right? So it isn't intentional. So, one thing I want to say, and don't worry, I will not forget about the numbing and self soothing, we will get back to that, is that none of this, right? Your hearts are in the right place. My heart is in the right place. We are lovers and friends and mothers and sisters. Like, we're empaths and highly sensitive people. So none of this is something that you should be like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person because of this. We're just misguided. And there is such a better way to do it that requires us to let people live their lives. We can be there because think about what is the most powerful flex that we can have around love is not fixing someone's problem. It's being in the foxhole with someone during a dark night of their soul and not fixing them, not trying to change them, be in acceptance. Like, you are grieving and this sucks, but I'm here and I see you and I'm witnessing you compassionately. And I love you. And we can talk, or we can just lay here, or we can watch a movie, or we can do shots, or whatever it is that is going to help your friend in that moment. That isn't you being like, well, maybe you should just have said this, or maybe you could go to my therapist. Like, all of that, even when it's well meaning, it is so dehumanizing. No, people do not like to be projects. They don't. You don't like it. When you're in pain and your friend's like, well, I don't know why you didn't just do this, or next time, or I have the right you're like, shut up. I just want you to be with me, to witness me, right? So we need to be able to surrender to what is, to let people live their lives, to disappoint people. And for those of us who have been professional pleasers and overachievers and perfectionists for decades, woo, disappointing people, that's a whole thing. And we got to learn how to do it because if you never do, Cheryl Richardson has a book called Let Me Disappoint You because it is so required. It is
Yeah.
so required. And if you don't disappoint someone else and be able to tolerate the way that makes you feel, right? You're going to be uncomfortable getting into recovery from being an HFC. You're going to get super intimate with being uncomfortable. It doesn't kill you though. And the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes. But if you're not ever disappointing others, then you are self abandoning your ass off, right? And we don't want that because what happens when we self abandon? Low self esteem. We feel like shit. We feel like our only value is being utilitarian to other people. We must add value. And that's not true because here's the thing, you are worthy of love and everything that you want simply by virtue of being alive, like right now. You don't have to do a thing. You don't have to lose a pound. You don't have to change one effing thing about yourself. You, right now, are perfectly lovable, beautiful, worthy, and amazing. So let's stop feeling like we got to like work for our dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Self-soothing and
Yep.
shadow
And
addiction.
numbing,
Yeah.
right?
And numbing. Yep.
So in the book, I talk about the differences between these two. So with self soothing, you won't end up feeling like shit about it. That's it. Self-soothing. Take a tub. That's self-soothing. You don't feel bad. With self-numbing behaviors, eventually there's a little part of you. You know, when you like when you binge Netflix for too long, or like you're like really, I mean, 6 hours, maybe that was too long. You kind of feel like, ugh, afterwards. You're not energized. You're like drained. You're exhausted. Same thing with nightly wine therapy or gummies or, and listen, I'm literally the most addicted mind you will ever meet, I believe might be mine. So I know all the ins and outs of justifying the shit out of, even after I stopped drinking, I was like, oh, menopause, and now I can't sleep. Maybe I need Ambien. Yeah, no, guess what? I literally had to go back to the doctor and be like, you need to write on my chart, do not give this bitch any drugs. None. She cannot have any, not Ambien, nothing, because I could just abuse anything. Anyway, long way around the barn to get back to self-soothing behaviors are things that they're nervous system regulators. There are things you can do regularly, being out in nature, reading, resting, meditating, journaling, self-reflection. Exercising is a major way of for us, because a lot of there's a part of the book where I talk about nervous system regulation and emotional self regulation. And when you're in HFC and you're reacting, your emotions are happening to you. So, what happens when you get into recovery is that you start happening to your emotions, meaning you look at them, you become radically curious and compassionate about them, but we don't let them just boss us around the way
Right.
we do when we are reacting.
That's right. Um, Terry, I just have to say, first of all, I know we're just scratching the surface, but you
Seriously.
have you've already seen the value. You see the value of this conversation. I know for me, I'm going to pour back into this because there's a few little burrs under my saddle. I need to work out. I need to sit with a little bit. There's one of the signs is in codependency, is the need to be needed. I got a little bit of that going on too, and really all my needs need to be filled by me and
Mhm.
not by anything externally. So I
Mhm.
know I've been working so much on in such flow on really just being in the moment and having enormous compassion for the fact that some of these patterns are deep. They are deep, 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 deep. And
Mhm.
it begins with awareness, begins with understanding. You can't fix something if you're not compassionate with yourself.
Mhm.
And self-consideration, my friend.
Yeah.
Terry, how can people find you? How can people work with you? I know Courtney just put up where your bonuses are and where all your stuff is.
Yep.
Um,
So, yeah, someone asked about a book club. There is actually a book club that we recorded. So if you get the book at HFC book.com, you'll get the recordings of that, which is great. I have a community, which we'll give you the links to. It's terrycole.com, TCM, which is Terry Cole membership. I also have a mastermind that starts March 1st that is for helpers, healers, women. You could be a therapist, but you could really do anything. But if it's like 9 months that we spend together of just figuring out how do we up our business life, but also up our psychological life, meaning how can we not be HFCs in business because so many of the people in my crew are. If you guys want to, follow me, I have a podcast, which you've been on, The Terry Cole Show, which I've had since 2015. You can go to terrycole.com and follow me on Insta at Terry Cole.
Terry, thank you so much. Like I said, I started this whole thing at the top. Like this book should be in all of our libraries. This is for women of a certain age. This is the Mama Jamma. This is the a lot of things come under this heading,
Mhm.
like the last great healing. The last great healing. The work is never done. We totally are in recovery because they're patterns, but I really feel like it's the last great relational healing,
Mm.
and it affects work, it affects your love life, it affects your family life, it affects your friends, it affects everything. I'm
Yes.
gonna hang out for a while. Terry, I'm gonna say goodnight to you with my love and thanks.
I
And
love you. Thank
when
you for
when is
having
your next
me.
book coming out?
Next book is not coming out until 2026, but it's going to be
Woo!
Father Wounds. I'm
Woo!
writing it right now. So
That's
wait for that, people. It's coming.
I
Thank you so
can't
much,
wait for
Sarah. I
that.
appreciate you.
Thanks, Terry. I appreciate you too.
Bye, you guys.
Bye. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, let's talk about that. Um, here's what I want to, I want to put a bow on this for us. That first of all, I think that we're amazing that we show up on a Wednesday night for ourselves this way to have this conversation, and you know what it's going to be. Like every time I wrote those emails, I'm like, I know this is feels a little bit like medicine. Like you're going to have to look at something but the fact that we can see across the river, there is like Terri said, there's just a juicier way to live. There's more life to experience, and there's some cleaning up to do. This isn't like we don't have to like blow up the building, but there's some cleaning up to do. There's some understanding to do. And doesn't it feel good when you understand yourself a little bit? When you're like, oh, okay, now I see why I do that, why I constantly have my hand up, why I'm always in everybody's business, why, whatever it is, why I can't ever speak my truth, why I can't say when I'm upset about something, why I can't negotiate any conflict with anybody. I'll just like never see you again. And, at a certain point, that lush, full, deep, rich life really is about being willing to do it. And I have to tell you, this is my firm belief. It is so much easier for me to do this with other people than it is for me to go just sit in my chair and read my book and do it by myself. So I do, it's like, okay, I hope I can enact these new policies of mine. When I see just even the visual of seeing all your faces and knowing that we're interested in this, in the up leveling here, we're interested in the expansion. We're interested in the next version of ourselves. We're not done. We're not giving up. We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. We don't need to be done till we're done. Till that last breath is taken. We don't really need to be done. We really don't. So I just want to say, so glad. Thank you, old friends, supporters who are here, TPN who are here, and thank you, Free Front Porchers. We welcome you with open arms. I There's nothing more I want to talk about than this. Like I'm not really good in a social setting anymore, honestly. It's like, people are like, "So, did you see the Kardashians?" I'm like, "Let's talk about high functioning codependency. Wanna? I got a quiz for you." I'm a real delight. I'm just saying I'm not fit for certain things anymore because I don't have time to screw around. I don't just want to be bibbly bobbling. I really don't. I really don't. I want to be focused on finding that vibration of receptivity and calling in the life I'm still dreaming up. Even as I'm appreciating what I've created so far and celebrating how much healing I've done. But I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And I think the fact that someone as brilliant as Terri Cole can say she's in codependency recovery, I'll join that club. I'll join that club. And you could join that with me. Thanks for listening to The Practice Life and this special that we dropped today. You can find all the links to work with Terri in the show notes. And also, if you are ready to begin doing practices in your own life, we have one that's free at the Sherry Salata Network. It's totally free. It's called Magic Morning Download, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is how you can begin your day each day, and it only takes us less than 3 minutes. Go to sherrysalata.com/free network, and you just put in your info, and you can be downloading morning magic in 2 shakes. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.